Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we've wasted enough time on this resolution, so I'll keep my remarks short. I believe it's a foolish waste of Congress's time and taxpayer dollars. When I'm home in my district, no one, literally no one, has ever expressed a fear that this country is in danger of falling under the sway of Stalin or Pol Pot or socialism, because that's absurd. We are a capitalist country. Whether I'm at the VFW or the local coffee shop or a union hall, a senior center, or an NFC championship watch party, my constituents want to know what we're doing to protect their Social Security and their Medicare. My constituents want to know how we are going to stop the flow of unregulated guns into our communities. My constituents want to know how we can help their children and families have access to a good education, economic opportunity, and to achieve the American dream. My constituents want to know that their votes will be counted, and they want to know that the law applies to everyone, whether it's the police or Long Island congressmen or former presidents. So it's really disappointing that our Republican colleagues are wasting precious time and resources on this resolution. Hours in the Rules Committee, hours in floor debate. Democrats stand ready to work together to find common ground to address the issues that Americans actually are confronting. But instead of working across the aisle to address these issues, our Republican colleagues are wasting everyone's time and wasting taxpayer dollars so they can make political statements to appease the radical right. I yield back.
The gentlelady from Minnesota is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think it's a worthwhile effort to denounce socialism, and I'm really disappointed that the members of the other side think that it's a waste of time to denounce socialism, because there was many times that we sat in this committee on resolutions or bills that had no chance of passing the Senate, or and we sat here and we listened and we participated in the conversation. And so I'm concerned that now they just throw that out, that anything the Republicans are doing is a waste of time, and particularly denouncing socialism. As we saw with the exchange with Mr. Reschenthaler, they're obviously not willing to do that. And so I have concerns about that. But I do think this is worthwhile, and I think that I want to thank Chairman McHenry for being here, but also thank Congresswoman Salazar for bringing it forward, because I think it is important that we bring these things forward to help educate the public and remind them what socialism really is. And so with that, I will yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman from Colorado is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to yield a little time to the ranking member.
Yeah, I mean, the real intellectual leap here is naming a bunch of awful people and then implying that somehow it's happening here in the United States. I mean, does anybody believe that Kim Jong-un has an influence here in the United States, or that Stalin is influencing what we're doing here? I mean, really. The real question, and what has everybody concerned, is the resolve clause. I mean, what are you getting at? I mean, what policies are you talking about? Is it policies that help poor people? Is it Social Security? Is it Medicare? I mean, what is this? What is prompting this? And again, I just say, I mean, not only is this a waste of time, this really is an embarrassment for this institution. And with all the challenges that we face, this is it? Non-binding resolution? I mean, I'm stunned, really. And again, with all respect to my friend, Mr. Chairman McHenry, and this is not your fault that you're here, but I mean, I just, with all the urgent matters out there, that this is what we're doing. And if you're going to do something like, I mean, I don't know, there ought to be a little meat to the bones, that at least we'd have something to talk about. But again, I mean, if this is what you're about, that's fine. Thank you. I thank the gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Ranking Member. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Madam Ranking Member, and thank you both for being here and for your testimony. I guess I'd like to take a little trip down memory lane here in recent history within the Congress, because I know this is not the first time that either of you have appeared before this committee, and of course have had the opportunity to have an exchange with you in the past, Mr. Chairman, when you were ranking member. And I'd echo the sentiments of my colleague, ranking member from Massachusetts, in terms of his statements about you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Perlmutter speaks highly of you, and I don't hold that against you. He speaks highly of you, but, so I know you to be a serious legislator. But nonetheless, I do want to take a little trip down memory lane. Mr. McHenry, Mr. Chairman, how long have you been, prior to being chairman, how long were you ranking member on this committee, on the Financial Services Committee?
4 years.
So back to the 116th Congress, is that about right? Do you recall your first time testifying in this committee as ranking?
I do not.
You do not?
I do not. I served, I came here as a freshman once, and the chairman very nicely informed me that I should not come back. And I heeded his call until I hired the former Rules Committee majority staff director. You're welcome to the minority staff, and actually the majority staff. And he said, I must come testify now that I'm ranking member. Sure. And I said, I've followed the heed since my first term, and so I had to come back, yes. I had to come back. My apologies that
it's all right.
I'm
It's
here.
a tough assignment. We're glad that you ignored that advice. If we go back in time to the 114th Congress, Republicans are in the majority here in the United States House of Representatives. The first bill that's referred out of the Financial Services Committee to this committee was H.R. 37, Promoting Job Creation and Reducing Small Business Burdens Act. And your predecessor, as chairman back then, January of 2015, testified in front of the Rules Committee on that particular bill, and I suspect made a compelling case about the bill that he put forward to this committee. In the 115th Congress, the first bill out of your committee before the Rules Committee, again, this is prior to your time as ranking member, this is when Republicans were in control and had the gavel, was the H.R. 78 SEC Regulatory Accountability Act. Right? Again, another substantive, serious bill with ramifications for the broader economy. Imagine that my predecessors, I know Mr. Cole was here, Chairman Cole and Ranking Member McGovern were here. I was not, but I imagine there was a very robust debate about those policy issues. But nonetheless, an important debate. In the 116th Congress, the first time you testified as ranking member before the Rules Committee, of course with Madam Chair Waters as chairwoman of the full committee, was on H.R. 1500, the Consumers First Act. And I know Chairwoman Waters will remember that bill well. It was her bill, a bill to advance the interests of consumers in our country. Do you recall the first time that you testified, Mr. Chairman, in the 117th Congress, last Congress, before this committee? Do you remember what bill that was on?
I told you it was a willful act to not come before the Rules Committee, so I've tried to blank these things out and to be brief.
This was only
here.
2 years ago. I'll help your memory. The first time that you testified in front of this committee, in the last Congress, when Democrats had the majority, was on the American Rescue Plan.
Yes.
That was the first bill that the Financial Services Committee referred to the Rules Committee to get it to the floor to rescue the American economy. Important bill. And we were grateful to have your testimony and the chairwoman's testimony. The reason why I go through that long list is it puzzles me why we are here debating as your first substantive bill out of your committee, a non-binding resolution. I just don't get it. I mean, there's so many, there are myriad of
I'm happy to address
bills and resolutions that I suspect you want to take up as chairman. I've read public reports about all the various plans that you have, some of which we'll agree with, some of which we won't, but important issues to work through. And the fact that we're here debating a non-binding resolution, I guess, is just something that because clearly, in the past at least, when Democrats have been in control and when Republicans have been in control, these are not the type of resolutions that the Congress has typically taken up.
So I'm happy to address that. The Financial Services Committee will meet for the first time on Wednesday, tomorrow, for our organizational meeting. The ranking member and I have worked on that date together. But that, we were not yet organized. We do not yet, the minority does not yet have subcommittee ranking members, and we don't have a naming resolution. We don't have a rules package. We don't have our oversight plan. We're going to address those things tomorrow. As I said, plainly, maybe too plainly and maybe too honestly, but if you look at every previous Congress, Democrat Congress, Republican Congress, you look at a low net number resolution, you will see it did not go through a full committee hearing and markup process because in the first month, committees are not organized. So the first bill's coming out of financial services. Chairwoman Water, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, and it's going to frustrate everybody. But Ranking Member Waters and I worked out our first 3 bills. We were on the floor yesterday, and we passed them. Only 1 recorded vote, no dissenting votes. 3 bills we passed out from our jurisdiction, bipartisan, 2 Republican, 1 Democrat, which is exactly what Chairwoman Waters did for her 2 Congresses she was in charge, 2 Democrat, 1 Republican. And that's what we tried to continue on this. My hope is to not have to come before the Rules Committee for our work. I don't want to busy you with this. I have an obligation here, and I think the resolution is self-evident on what it is, and the resolve is quite self-evident. I support the contents of the resolution, and under House rules, it is my obligation to carry this forward before the Rules Committee, and it's an honor to be with you, Mr. Neguse, and hope that we can talk about the important matters of policy, and I hope it will be bipartisan, and this will be a wonderful singing of Kumbaya we get to do together as a great group.
The feeling is mutual, and I appreciate you, Mr. Chairman. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman